Oh, hello. And welcome to Because Science live from Comic-Con. How you feeling? I've been sitting like Thanos for a bit, just trying to get a feel for the space. But you know, we're gonna walk around. I want to do something a little bit different than what we usually do on this live stream. I want to go directly to all of you standing and sitting here at the Nerdist House in the Sparks Gallery in the Gas Lamp of San Diego, which is lovely, by the way. I want to go to you directly with your questions, and we will also be taking questions from the chat, so you can submit them, and we will read them in lieu of people not having questions that are actual questions. So, if you have a question, you can please raise your hand, and one of my lovely Void associates will find you with a microphone, and I will do my best to answer all of your comments, questions, corrections, and weird comments about my hair to the best of my ability off of the top of my head. Please, sir, we'll talk at home. So, also, for everyone in the room, I do have two little pieces of special, exclusive stuff for all of you here. Don't worry, it'll be making it out to you soon, but if you stick around right after the stream, have a little something special for you. So with that, let us begin. Does anyone have any nerdy questions for moi? Start raising your hands. It's fine. I'm just up here. I'll vamp. We got one.
It's not 100% nerdy, but it's from the kid who's been following you around for 2 days.
Yes.
She wanted to know, she actually asked NASA, is there an end to the universe?
Is there an end to the universe? It's a weird question, because I think as humans we want to know what the edge of something is. And I think it's in our bones to want to know where the edge is and then want to go beyond that edge. But I think as far as we know, the universe doesn't have a finite edge, and if it did, I mean, there's conflicting theories, but if the universe did have an edge, we also know that the universe is expanding at an accelerating rate, so fast that it can go faster eventually than we can travel. It's going right now faster than we ever have any hopes of traveling in any kind of spacecraft with, you know, fusion, something like that, even antimatter, Trekkies. So even if the universe did have an edge, we wouldn't be able to, right now, feasibly even reach that edge because it is expanding away from us faster than we can travel. But that's also kind of a cool thing about the universe, because it's accelerating and expanding in all directions. Everything, everywhere is the center. Like, people tell you not to be the center of your own universe, not to feel like everything revolves around you, but kind of geometrically speaking, there's no one center to the universe, so it could be you. And maybe that helps you get through the day. I don't know, it helps me sometimes. What's next? Question in the back. Vamp, 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 vamp. Yes.
Hello. Can you explain exactly how Thanos' Infinity Gauntlet works?
Okay. All right. How does the Infinity Gauntlet work? Well, what the Collector says in the Marvel films is that they have singularities inside of the Infinity Gems or stones, depending on how pedantic you want to get. So a singularity, like a naked singularity or something like that, is a point in space at which the laws of physics seemingly break down. This is what we think is at the center of black holes. I say center again. It goes back to the other point. Anyway, at the center of black holes, laws of physics break down. We're talking like divide by zero kind of stuff. And you know that's weird. So with the power of a singularity at the center of an infinity gem, if I was a writer, you would say, well, here the laws of the universe are breaking down. If I can somehow harness this breaking downness, then you could do things that are otherwise not possible in our universe as far as we know. But I have another theory. It's not a film or a game one, but I have another theory that if singularities are inside Infinity Stones, then a black hole might also be inside an Infinity Stone, and it would be very, very small. And we know from Stephen Hawking, R.I.P., that as black holes will actually get smaller. As they get smaller, they radiate energy away more and more and more and more and more and more until they evaporate and like that. It's called Hawking radiation. It's a big reason why he's famous. And so if you had a small black hole black hole that could fit inside of an infinity stone, it would be emitting so much radiation from it that you could get some kind of power out of it. You would have to find a way to harness and direct that power, but it's not the weirdest thing I've ever heard. It's nudging up to the edge of plausible, and then Gamora goes off. Any other questions? Right over here. It happened. It's fine. Characters change. Movies happen. It came out and when. Anyway.
I guess sticking with Infinity War, the one thing I thought was weird in the movie was how did Thor, Rocket, and Groot get back? Because he didn't have the Bifrost power before.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. That was. And how did he know that everyone was in Wakanda? I don't know, man. The Bifrost. So the cool thing about working in LA and in this industry is that you get to meet the scientists who actually advise on some of these films. The theoretical physicist who advised on the Thor films, his name is Sean Carroll. He works at Caltech. He's a very, very smart guy. I recommend his books and his talks. He's awesome. But he developed the Bifrost in the Thor films as an Einstein-Rosen bridge, as a way to say something like a wormhole. So if Asgardian technology could find the coordinates of point A and point B, you would be able to connect these points through time and space without having the problems of relativistic time travel and those kinds of things. Because if you go really, really fast, let's say from Asgard to Wakanda, just in a straight line, the speed you'd have to go at, it wouldn't affect you. You'd be aging normally, but when you arrived in Wakanda, the battle would have been over for 100 years, or it could be. So wormholes are a way around that problem. It's the same thing you always see in every sci-fi show because they think it's, real sciencey, where they take the piece of paper and they put the pencil through it, like, whoa. Like, we've seen that. We're done. Move on to something else, like putting balls on like a rubber sheet or something like that. Like, whoa, gravity. It could be wormholes. That's how you could get from point A to point B very quickly, and if it was arbitrarily powerful, let's say, and you could keep it open, you could travel to anywhere in time and space. But I will say that as a science-y person that looks into this kind of thing, wormholes are only theoretical at this point. We've never seen one. We don't have any evidence of wormholes. They are a consequence of the math. So, and to make wormholes work, you would need some kind of what scientists call exotic matter, which is to say, I don't know. They just say that. It's just like dark matter because can't see it, no idea what it is. So exotic matter we would need, or negative energy, which is I don't know. So, if you could make wormholes, then you'd have a Bifrost, maybe. But would it look like that? Probably not. What's next? Anyone? Got one right here, sure. Then you can go next.
How strong would the Hulk have to be to break one of Superman's bones?
How strong would the Hulk have to be to break one of Superman's bones? Oh, no. Oh, no. You should have just asked me who would win, Goku or Superman. I see you, commenters. Okay, so this is the problem with doing this kind of analysis, is that you have to determine what canon of Superman you actually want. Is he the super strong one? Is he the one that can be inside the sun for a year, or whatever the heck he did? You have to first encourage every nerd on the planet to agree on this is what we're talking about, and then take a different universe and say, all right, set DC to the side for a second. Now let's take all of Marvel's history and let's get every nerd to agree what we're talking about, and then let's make them fight. That is very, very difficult. So I would need to do specific orientations of what power do they have in what universe and so on. So it's hard for me to say off the top of my head. But I'll redirect like a politician. What a handsome question. The breaking strength of bones is not crazy high. It's especially in tension like this, instead of compression like this. So our bones can snap pretty dang easily depending on how you apply the force to them. The femur is the strongest bone in our body, but when you jump, you're stressing it along the line that it wants to be stressed on. We evolved like this, so it's compression. But when you hit a bone in a way that's not supposed to bend, in tension, which would be like if you hit your femur like this, then it can snap much more easily. So if you were the Hulk, punch Superman in like a bad way. Have you ever been punched like in the middle of the bicep? Yeah. It hurts. Because my show. What's next? Oh, we had one right here.
Okay. So, are you aware of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure?
I've heard of it. People tell me I should watch it.
It's good. Okay, in part 7 of it, there's a mystical force called the spin. And
The spin.
It's control over the Magnus Effect. Is there a way we could achieve that?
Oh, so what you're asking about is what's called the Magnus Effect. That if you had a spinning object, it creates a downforce on it that it can change the path through air that it is taking. My buddy Veritasium did a really cool video on the Magnus Effect. You should watch it, where he takes a basketball, spins it backwards as he's throwing it off of a very tall dam, and it doesn't go down. It does this. And it flies out hundreds of feet horizontally. It's because of this Magnus Effect. As the ball is spinning, it's creating a different force through the air and moving it horizontally instead of just straight down like gravity wants to do. And the cool thing about the Magnus Effect is that we've actually tried to apply it. There are designs, I don't know their specific names off the top of my head, but there are designs of ships that use the Magnus Effect to steer or to orient themselves on the sea. And they have, look them up, they have giant spinning tubes. Like in the place, think of it this way, like in the place of sails, there are giant cylinders that spin on the top of these ships to take advantage of this effect. It is very, very weird. So to get to your question, could you harness something like the Magnus Effect for some kind of superpower or attack or something like that? Oh yeah, ball, yeah. If you applied enough force to a ball like during a pitch or something like that, I mean, pitchers are aware of this kind of thing, even if they don't give it a name. And so I could see something like that happening. I could also see someone like the Flash falling and turning his body and then spinning himself fast enough where he does this weird, like, horizontal, like, see you later. That'd be really weird. I've over the course of analyzing pop culture and stuff like this, I've found a lot of weird consequences for superpowers, especially like the Flash, who, if you really wanted to be really mean, yeah, you can punch somebody, but also you could take somebody, run at 99% the speed of light, just like grab them by the collar and be like, this is gonna suck for you, and pull them, like slowly accelerate, get up to the speed of light, and then let them go, and be like, what happened? And like, look around. Everyone that you know has died of old age. I know, right? It'd be terrible. Or like, Superman could punch someone, but he could also just like, just grab you by the arm and just slowly bring you up into space. Like, no! Or he could just hold on to you until you expired. Anyway, these are the things I think about. Thank you for making it possible for me. What's next? We have a couple. Nate, let's go to him.
Jessica Jones breaks padlocks by grabbing it and pulling down. How heavy must she be that she doesn't lift herself up instead?
Yeah, no, that's a great point. So there's a lot of I've done a video on this, but there's a lot of weird problems with super strength in that like you're saying, if you're pulling a pulley, like a weight on a pulley, if it weighs more than you, well, you have mechanical advantage with the pulley, so it'd have to weigh like twice as more than you or whatever. But it's hard, I'll say it generally, it's hard to shove things that are heavier than you, it's harder to punch things that are heavier than you because of the reactionary force it would have on your body. You would either lift off of the ground or you would be flung backwards. A lot of things happen in stuff like Jessica Jones or any other superhero movie where they punch each other. If I can punch you across the room, even if I'm bracing myself, it is going to apply the same amount of force to you. And even if you're not flying back as far, it should be like, just wait. And then you punch, and like flying back the same amount. theoretically. So yes, you're right on the money. There's weird consequences of super strength, as you know. What else could you do with it? Anyway, we had someone else. We had someone else right here, Nate. Ah, yes, going swimmingly.
In honor of Clone Wars, what do you think it would take to raise a army of clones that age faster than normal humans?
What would it take to raise an army of clones? I like to call them George Clonies. Feel free to use that. Hey. My show. George Clonies. The hang up on cloning isn't a technological one. The hang up on cloning, and this is just as interesting, I think, as the technology, is the ethical problem. We could probably start cloning people fine now, easy. And some researchers in China are messing around with this kind of stuff because they have a different view of the ethics of the subject. And what is keeping us from genetically modifying our babies and attempting cloning and different things, it's an ethics problem more than it is a technology problem, which is interesting because that doesn't always happen in science and technology, right? We know we can do these things, but we have decided as a society that we should be hesitant or we should really think it through or we can't do something. And to me, that's really interesting. That's when I watch Star Wars, that's kind of an undercurrent for me. That's never addressed. What if you just made 1 million people and they're all the same? It would be such a weird interaction to have with, you're in a battalion and everyone looks like you and you all have the same genetic code. So we could do this now, but the clones would not all be identical. There's more that goes into us than just our genetic code. We now know it's not a nature versus nurture problem. It is both. It is a mix of both. If you raise two identical twins that have the same DNA, they are nature's clones. Tell your twin friends that. Nature's clones, depending on their environments and their experience with the environment, our genes flip on and flip off in certain ways that leads to changes in our bodies and in our minds and how we go throughout life. It's called epigenetics, and it's how the environment affects our genetic code that is already written. So all of those clones might have their own personalities, and they would have all their own personalities, their own tastes. They would look more or less identical, but there's more variation even in clones than we think. But if I was an animator, I would just make 1 million of the same thing because that's much, much easier. It's like, what are the epigenetics and ethics of this show right now? Oh, we have to make money? All right, never mind. What's next? Multiple.
Yeah, hi.
Hello.
Just going back to Infinity War for a second.
Sure.
What do you think it would take the human brain, in Doctor Strange's case, to actually live through going through the millions and millions and millions of times? Or would he actually have some sort of temporal, Alzheimer's coming out of it?
Wow. What would it be like to experience, how many is it? 6 million, 14 million, 13? Thanks, nerds. What would it be like to experience 13 million possible futures? No idea. But when I was growing up, I used to have kind of, I think maybe as sciencey people you can agree with me that you come up thinking very binary about human experience, saying there's nothing, when I was growing up, I was mystical stuff and spiritual stuff, and it's no, I'm just hard science, that's all I want to deal with. But the more we look into meditation and altered states of consciousness and stuff, we see that there is biophysical evidence for what is happening in people's brains when they take mushrooms or LSD or something like that, and we find that there can be amazing effects. Some of you are smiling a little bit too widely when I say the names of these drugs. That's fine. Live your life. We find unintended consequences where LSD or microdosing doesn't have a lot of great evidence to it, but taking LSD in controlled trips, for example, can and does really help with major depression for some people. So going back to Doctor Strange, I think you would have to have some kind of altered state of consciousness where your view of the world and your view of reality is shifted in a way that we can't really comprehend right now. And that happens to people in sensory deprivation tanks and such. And when they go, for example, if they take ayahuasca, which is another drug that has psychogenic properties, where your sense of self and you and everything you are literally dissolves. I heard it described as one guy felt like he suddenly became butter spread across the landscape, and he could see everything. It sounds funny, and it sounds weird, but if you think about the fact that we can actually have these kinds of experiences and that would change our life in a certain way, I don't think it's that crazy that Doctor Strange could tap into some altered state of consciousness and see the universe in a different way. Yes, it's mystical, it's magical. You can't see the future as far as we know, but there's some ground there, which is what I always try to get at. There's some ground to that. Yes. Who's next? Right here. Hey, buddy.
Hey, Kyle. It's me again. What's up? So recently in the Dark Knight's comic series, the Darkest Metals comic series, Batman, if you guys don't know the series, Batman uses the Doomsday drug to actually regrow a limb that he got cut off by Superman. What's the viability of a virus or something like that, like the lizards use and Batman used in the situation to actually regrow limbs in very quickly amount of time?
Ooh, okay. So, kind of redirect because it's a difficult question. But the more research we do into animals that have amazing regenerative capabilities, the one I always bring up is the axolotl. It's a Mexican cave salamander that's almost extinct in the wild. They have amazing regenerative capabilities. They can regrow their limbs any number of times without scarring, without damage if it's removed. They can regrow parts of their brain if they have brain damage. They can regrow entire eyes perfectly, indefinitely. That's amazing. The more we look into their genome, we see that they have some of the same genes and some of the same pathways in their genetic code that we think are related to regeneration. And we see that, we could do kind of, I'm generalizing hugely here, but you see like, we have some of the same genes and oriented in some of the same ways. Could we unlock then this potential in the human genome? So extrapolating wildly, if there was some kind of nanotechnology or medicine or something that could, let's say, flip all those switches epigenetically, like I was mentioning with clones, if you could take something that flipped all of those switches at once, maybe the body would suddenly have the same capabilities of something like a cave salamander. In terms of how long it would take, I think Deadpool, if anything, gets that more right than they know. It is not going to be instantaneous, if for nothing other than if you're regrowing an entire limb, it's going to take time because it takes resources. Where is the limb coming from? You need your own cells and your own body's energy to regrow and do that. And you know how long it takes for just a scrape to heal. So to marshal the body's resources to do all of that like that would be very difficult. So I think it would be very slow, or it would really take a toll on you, I think. And you'd have this terrible bump, and it would your body would send all your body's blood to it, and it would be pulsing and weird and throbbing. Nope, sounds cool again. All right.
You want to do online?
Yeah, sure. Let's take a question from the chat real quick. Hello.
From the Sailing Coconut. Can you explain spin gravity on the behemoth from The Expanse?
Oh, another reason to talk about The Expanse. Watch The Expanse and put me on it. The spin gravity is the best way, I think, to depict ongoing gravity on something like a spaceship. If you have a spinning, let's say, disc or cylinder, if you're at the edge of that cylinder, you are being accelerated inwards, but you feel a reactionary force at your feet, like you're trying to be flung out of the cylinder, but it gets in your way. And that get in your way force would feel like gravity. So the ship is trying to throw you out. It's kind of like spinning a ball on a string, and if you let go, it would just go. But if you put something on the edge of that and keep spinning it, it's going to feel a force that's keeping it from flying off into space, and we can deem that artificial gravity or something like it. The other way is thrust. If you're under thrust, that's one of the easier ways. You would have your spaceship oriented so that the decks are orthogonal to the thrust, so that if you were going this way, you feel acceleration this way, and if you accelerate at 9.81 meters per second, I hope they're okay, then that's the same acceleration due to gravity on Earth, which would give you a reactionary force at the spaceship deck that would equal your weight, and that would be very easy to do. But also watch The Expanse, they get a ton of stuff right. What's next? Hey, man.
Hi. Our understanding of the universe is constantly changing. So is there anything that you were told in childhood which is now not true that really, really annoys you?
Repeat it louder for me, sorry.
Right. So you'll have been told stuff in school that now we know is not true.
Sure.
Is there anything that you were told as a child that is now not true that really, really annoys you?
Oh, sure. Yeah, so what's awesome about science to me is that it is a progressive body of knowledge. It is always changing. It's not set in stone. You know, you should do this, that, and the other. If new evidence comes along, we update our theories. It's how we stay ahead of the curve and ahead of evolution, which is a whole nother thing. But is there anything that we were taught as kids that we now know isn't true? Well, there's a ton of like truisms that are definitely not true that we know. Like cracking your knuckles is fine. Your mom or your dad ever told you, it's like, don't crack your knuckles, you'll get arthritis? There was, to study this, one scientist only cracked one hand for like 40 years and not the other hand. And then at the end of 40 years, he's like, no, I'm good. And that was it. Like, I love that kind of testing. Do you really need to drink 8 glasses of water a day? People are varied. We are all on a spectrum of everything all the time. No one is just an A person or a B person or a C person. You're all very unique, although we can draw general conclusions, which is, if you're thirsty, drink some water. You don't need to drink 8. You need to drink when you are thirsty, and you need to make sure that you're getting enough water. But if that is 7 for you, if that is 12 for you, good. Same thing with sleep. I think what science textbooks don't do an amazing job of, and you know it's understandable, they have to teach the basic facts. They don't do an amazing job of establishing that humans are as varied as all the concepts that we discuss and we talk about and the things that we're interested in. For everything that we're interested in, there's someone who's uniquely interested in it, and we're all multitudes, and we contain them, which is someone's book. Sorry. Anyway, it's a good book by Ed Yong. You should read it. Thank you so much, everyone watching at home. Wait. Thank you so much, everyone watching at home. We are live from San Diego Comic-Con. I appreciate you staying with me every week. Next week, back to the regular programming on the channel. I hope you enjoyed it. Send me your comments and questions at youtube.com/BecauseScience, facebook.com/BecauseScience, and @BecauseScience on Instagram and Twitter. And next year, if you can come to SDCC, come and fist bump me. It's more hygienic. Thank you. Bye.